Welcome to the Samueletini Show, where business, innovation, and sustainability converge to drive progress. Are you ready to uncover solutions shaping our future? Let's dive in. Welcome to a new episode. Today we are going to discuss plastics with somebody that has done a wonderful solution, and that's why I have to contact her. But who also, she's an explorer, somebody that has done wonderful work in conservation in ocean. So, wow, when I look at her curriculum, I say, we need to have her on the show. And so I'm pleased to have here today Rachael Miller, who is the Rosalia Project co-founder, the co-inventor of Cora Ball, and National Geographic Explorer. Wow, I mean, let me stop there. It's too much. Thank you so much, Rachael, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be speaking with you.
Fantastic. And Rachel, I mean, your curriculum and your achievement are incredible. I mean, I wish I could have done just half of what you have done. But can you share with us a bit? What is your personal journey? How you have entered the sustainability space?
Well, thank you so much. I have an unusual kind of history, but I think the most important driving factor for me is that I'm a water person completely. Like, I'm not very graceful on land. I'm good with skis on my feet, but otherwise I am completely a water person and I love it. And I realized kind of late in life that I exist to protect our ocean. That's kind of my main driving force. And I do that in different ways, weaving science and conservation, but also sport and art and a real variety of topics and activities to try to connect the widest swath of people to whatever waterway is nearest and dearest to them, so that together we can kind of protect it, understand it all, and protect it.
Fantastic, Rachel. And let's dive in a bit, just to keep the thing going on your work. And the first one is the Rosalia Project for a Clean Ocean. I mean, for our audience that might not be familiar with it, can you explain a bit what it implies, what is it? And then we can deep dive on the achievements and the work that you have done.
So this is our 15th year anniversary of Rosalia Project, which is I can't even believe it sometimes. But 15 years ago, we went to just a little 3-day vacation on an island off the coast of Maine. And there had recently been a nor'easter, which in New England is a big kind of a fairly big storm that comes in from the sea. The wind blows from the northeast, which is from the sea to the land. And it can blow a lot of trash up on the shores that are exposed. And this particular beach where we were just rented a small kind of empty cabin was covered in trash. And that kicked off Rosalia Project, because I realized that this is one of those things that I can't just leave, that I wanted to work on it. And from then we set out to protect the ocean by focusing primarily on the problem of marine debris. And if you think about what you've seen out there, you probably will realize that there's a kind of 3 big categories of this problem, and they're derelict fishing gear. So just think everything that has to do with fishing that isn't fishing any longer. It's just washed up or broken or swirling around the ocean. Then there's consumer debris. We've all seen that. That's like the everyday wrappers and beverage containers and stuff. And then microplastics, which are harder to see, but still most people have noticed microplastics along the edge of a water line on a beach. And there's a lot out there that we can't see, but we know is there. And so we work on those 3 problems and we use 4 strategies. And what's incredible to me is looking back is that the strategies are the same. We've been doing this consistently throughout the last 15 years, but our knowledge has evolved and our techniques have evolved. But our 4 strategies are to do data cleanups. So we are not a cleanup organization. We're a solutions-oriented organization that strategically uses cleanups where we record everything we pick up as a way to understand a problem in a local place so that it can be prevented, and also to understand it in the big picture. Then the second is prevention through education. So that clearly is important for prevention. Then we are embracers of innovation and technology. So we've used underwater robots, ROVs. We have one called Hector the Collector with a little gripper claw on the front to connect people to the natural world. Early on, we're using drones and things like that. So we're pretty into technology and seeing how we can apply that to this particular conservation problem. And finally, we do solutions-based research. So that is a combination of studies that we produce peer-reviewed published papers and other localized studies where we may just do a report or something like that, but using robust methods to understand the problem better. And then the last thing I'd add is that we do this surface to sea floor. So obviously accessing the shoreline is kind of the easiest depending on where you are. But as a sailor and a water person, we realized we had some unique skills. And so we also addressed the surface of the water and underwater. Surface of the water from a really awesome 60-foot sailing research vessel. We can talk about that. We have all sorts of cool renewable energy on board. And I love talking about that. The boat's called American Promise, and it has a cool history. Yeah, so that's we'll leave that. I can get distracted on the sailing.
No, it's fantastic. And let me recall, I really like already we can do 3 episodes on each of the pillars because the data cleanup is so important because of course we need to understand which type of pollution is there. And of course recalling also here in Kenya when we did some mangroves work, especially around of the coast of Kenya, even in pristine location, archipelago that seems unspoiled, you see old fishing gears, maybe you get the water bottle pushed away maybe from many miles and sometimes I got water bottle coming from the other side of the Indian Ocean. And then so and then I really like the education. So the people of the future, the young generation, the world, and then innovation and the technology. We'll talk about Cora Ball, which I think it stemmed from that real innovation work, and really the boat and the research. So from all these pillars, can you share maybe 1 or 2 experiences that really you are proud of within this 15-year journey?
Okay, well, for that, I think we'd have to start with the Cora Ball for sure, because I think this is the part of our work that has had the widest reach globally, and I think in a lot of ways has helped us achieve our goals in a very specific way. So when we learned about the problem of microfiber pollution, so just a quick definition on that, anything that's made of textile or that's textile-like or is made of fibers of any kind, it all can be vulnerable, either right out of the gate, like think of a cotton shirt or a fleece jacket that's soft and nice, it's tiny little fibers that are kind of vulnerable to breaking, but even textiles or a fishing line that's made of fiber that's very strong, that over time, after the sun has been on it and it gets weathered in UV, that can break too. So it's a wide-ranging problem, this microfiber pollution, and it happens because fibers break off of something bigger. So another phrase that people like to use is fiber fragmentation to understand it. But the biggest contributor of this pollution as a category is our clothing. So everything that we wear is potentially breaking tiny little microscopic, can't see it without a microscope, bits of fiber off while we wear it, while we wash it, and while we dry it. And these can end up in the environment, air, soil, water, ingested, inhaled, all sorts of, essentially wherever people look, it's been found. Not in every sample, but in every kind of region and place. So anyway, so when we learned about the problem, we made 3 goals. And the 3 goals were to contribute knowledge, because when we learned about it back in 2013, it had sort of just been discovered by a team at Plymouth University in the UK. And there wasn't much information. So we wanted to contribute research. We wanted to come up with a solution to start to stop the problem. And we wanted to spread the word, to inspire people in all of the adjacent industries like washing machines and dryers and textile manufacturing and fiber production or extrusion and filament production and fashion designers, for them to be aware of the problem and to apply their considerable talent and innovations. So that's kind of what we set out to do. The Cora Ball, which goes in your washing machine, was what we came up with as a solution to get started. If you think about it, a lot of this problem does happen in the wash, or a lot of the transfer from clothing to the natural world happens in a washing machine because these fibers break off, they flow out the drain, and then depending on what happens with a wastewater treatment plant or wastewater treatment in general, it's these fibers can make it into our natural world where they mess up water systems and foods and creatures. And there's a lot of, we're learning more of every quarter of every year. More papers come out that tell us how much microplastic in particular, but microfiber on the whole, can pose a danger to human and planetary health. So the Cora Ball drops in your washing machine and it does two things. It helps prevent clothes from shedding in the first place. So it helps your clothes last longer, saves money in the long run, that kind of thing. And it can also help catch some of the fibers that do break off and catch them before they go out the drain.
Fantastic. And it's really a simple solution. That is really a bootstrap solution back with science, of course. And do you have some data, since you said 2013 we started after this research on Plymouth University and the what? So have you some data of how just a simple solution of a Cora Ball can really help and transform the way maybe we reduce our impact of the daily washing?
Yeah, independent tests have shown that the Cora Ball can prevent 30%, up to 30% of what would otherwise go out the drain, can prevent that from happening. And for me, I mean, we'd have gone to market at 10%. Like for me, 10%, anything is better than what happens
Yes.
without.
No, 30%, it's an important, but if you compound that for all, I don't know how many cycles, I'm sure quick research will tell us, but so there are thousands of millions of washing machine working every single day. That's a huge impact in reduction of microplastic, that is, and microfibers, as you say. It's a really important.
Yeah, it can totally end up being a big reduction or a big impact, big positive impact from an individual's home. But when you combine a whole community or multiple individuals in a community, reducing the amount of microfiber pollution that is coming out of their own homes, then you start to make some big impact. And the magnitude of the problem is big. Depending on how small fiber you're investigating, researchers have found that single garments can shed millions of these microscopic pieces every single time they're washed. And so when you start to, even 30% of a million is quite a lot. So we might as well start stopping the problem as best we can. And the cool thing is you can also reduce microfiber pollution by simply washing in cold water and doing full loads. They're washing your clothes less. There's some great solutions that can start even before a Cora Ball. Then a Cora Ball helps reduce further. And what we hope happens and what kind of needs to happen is that we eventually end up, the sort of collective we, with washing machines that are fitted with microfiber filters in a similar way to dryers have lint traps. Because a lint trap in a dryer does the exact same thing that we need to happen. It catches microfiber before it can be emitted into the air. Same stuff.
This is important because you say it's a lifestyle solution. So, of course, the first one is to reduce our impact, be more mindful with type of clothing, also ethical thinking. We cannot say what, but we know there are some research. We invest some B Corps and stuff that they are doing wonderful things in the textile space. And of course, Cora Ball can be compounding all that type of way of living and also being mindful of the art. And I want to ask you, said this question is really important. Are you also trying to engage the industry on how, from the, let's say, the manufacturer point of view, the big companies, how they can also stop at source, at the washing machine level and other, reduce also that?
Oh, absolutely and completely. I really appreciate the question, because one of our goals was to spread the word. And for me, that your question comes under that umbrella of communicating about the problem and its consequences to people at all levels of the textile, let's call it the supply chain, or even beyond the textile life cycle. Because these things pass through a lot of industries and consumers and more industries, whether it's upstream of consumers or downstream. And so we do that different ways. We engage as many people as we can through peer-reviewed published science to have that kind of robust, backed up information about this problem. And mostly what our work is in there as it relates to the papers is to understand what is out in the world and how much of it and what the potential sources are. And our work has been really varied geographically. So we sampled the entire Hudson River. So if anybody's been to New York City, the Hudson is the bigger river to the west that goes right past the Statue of Liberty. And it starts high in the mountains, nearly 300 miles to the north. And it flows from the Alpine region through sort of rural, there's industrial sections, there's agricultural sections, then there's New York City. This is a lot of people, a lot going on. And then it flows out in the Atlantic. So we've sampled the entire Hudson River from source to the sea every 3 miles. But we've also had the amazing opportunity through National Geographic and Lindblad expeditions to sample the air and the water in the Arctic and the Antarctic to really understand how far this stuff, meaning microplastics and man-made microfiber, has gotten. And when we do find this in remote places, what do we think the sources are? And what do we think I think of it as a mechanism of transfer. So how could some of our clothing, which is what our results have shown, that this is microfiber, most likely from clothing, how could it end up swirling around in the air above a bunch of penguins? And that kind of being able to get that information and talk about that information and show pictures of the penguins standing in front of huge, beautiful glaciers and ice formations, that is another of the ways that we are working on spreading the word and trying to inspire action.
And I hope now the manufacturers and the people, they are really putting the action. And then may I ask a question before we deep there? I mean, is Cora Ball only available in the United States, or is available all over the world? And so for people that they would like to have that, I mean, I could say we don't get any referrals. It's just to understand.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we have still various international partners. We don't have anyone on the continent of Africa right now, which is tough. And it's not getting easier financially they're made in the US. So on coraball.com, there's a shops list, and it does list the places that sell them in the US and around the world. Right now, I think Africa might be the only continent where we don't have a partner, which is a bummer, but it's hard financially. So for people who are in Africa or just people who are anywhere and can't get a hold of something like this, then it's good that there are alternative ways to address the problem through techniques like washing with a full load, washing with full cold water, spot cleaning, washing less often, just only when clothes are really dirty. And when you have a choice, using a front loader, which I think most people outside of the US generally do. So I appreciate the question, and you can find opportunities on coraball.com.
Fantastic. And this is small things, small steps that can help, also agency at the individual level or family level. And going towards, agency, decision making, and really trying to understand the work. So I would like to ask, you are now almost, you are publishing an important book that I really like the title, Decision Making in the Age of Plastic. So everybody is talking about AI, but I think we have a lot of plastic also going out. So, and it's due to out, let's say, beginning of end of summer, beginning of autumn. So, can you tell us a bit what do you imply by the decision making in the age of plastic, and to whom are you addressing your book?
Yes, this is really exciting. I thank you so much for talking about it. This is my first time getting to speak about the book, so that you will always be the first. So yes, I'm so excited. One of the most frequent conversations I have with people, one of the category of questions that I get most often when the topics that I work on get brought up or I give a presentation, and I love this so much, has to do with people wanting to make better decisions about the stuff that they already own or the stuff that they anticipate acquiring, whether that's buying it or trading for it or borrowing it or whatever. And I love that people want to make, let's just say, better decisions. But the more we learn about plastic in particular, the more I realize those decisions aren't just about better for the planet. They're better for our own and our family members' health as well. And they're also better for our budgets, because buying things that aren't going to work out or that are short-lived or anything like that, that's not helping anyone either. So what decision making in the age of plastics is a choose your own adventure style guide. Do you remember the choose your own adventure books? I don't know if you read them, or I loved them. And the way it works is you get information or a story, and then there's a choice. And then you make the choice, and it tells you to go to whatever page, and you go through the book that way. And so I wanted an interactive but fact-based guide to walk people through decisions that are best for them, because I can't tell everyone what to buy. I am not privy to people's particular personal situations. But what I can do is take the experience of what I've learned about materials, about useful life, about end of life, and all of that. And I can guide people to make decisions that are backed by knowledge and people can feel good about. And the whole thing is done by addressing a particular product and then applying a 5-question framework. So just think, you can go through this. Once you learn it, you can do it really fast. And it's 5 questions. They are, why do you want the thing? Do you have something else that will do the job, just to make sure? What is it made of? Or questions about provenance, who makes it, where is it made, that kind of thing. What is its useful life and what is its end of life? And so, for example, one of the chapters in the first edition of the book is a fleece jacket. So we go through, well, why do you want the fleece jacket? And you think about it. I'm cold, or I like it. I like the one I saw, whatever it is, and you'll meander through. So everyone won't necessarily read the book the same way, because you'll follow your own needs and your own opinions. So then you'll get walked through the different materials that fleece jackets are made from and pros and cons about each of them, but presented in a readable way.
Fantastic. And when you were telling, I mean, I cannot wait to have to grab a copy and to read it, because it's really important. And I really like the framework of the 5 question. I think it's something that is not just could be a way of incorporating in our own life. If every purchase we do we just go through these 5 simple questions, we might, stop many of the issues. We have the over consumerism and all of those issues. Because I'm telling you, especially for textile and fast fashion, I mean, I do you need this not just because I like it? And then we read the statistic that the average utilization of clothing is maybe 1 or 2 times in, let's say, in UK or US, which is I think is, as you say, completely crazy, because we are putting a lot of burden not only on the planet but also on people, especially in some areas of the planet. Like if we think about what is happening in some of where the supply chains and the ethical and really unethical condition where the people are working. So I think 5 simple questions to really change the way you work and choose.
I'm excited to hear that. I think it's something, yeah, the first book, it has a fleece jacket as one of the chapters, and then we go through food wraps and baggies, the kind that you'd like pack stuff in for the day. Then glitter, because it turns out glitter is way more complex than I realized, and there's a decision-making tree you can use for that. Laundry detergent, clearly close to my heart as someone who, through the Cora Ball, thinks about laundry a lot. And then the last one is takeaway food containers. So I don't care what you get for your takeaway food. Like, I love French fries, every now and then. But the containers that it comes in, because there's some strategies that we can use to reduce exposure to some potential health problems, like to something that can affect our health. And that's what this book helps you understand, and helps you with solutions and alternatives and strategies to kind of get what you want, but in a way that balances your health, the health of the planet, and your budget. And so that's what we're starting with. And like you said, you just apply a very similar method to each, and I just help fill in the gaps. I think for me, I have an unusual path to like peer-reviewed published science. I don't have a PhD or even a master's. As a founder of Rosalia Project, and with the goals to protect the ocean, and I went through methods earlier, is I realized that using the most formal definitions is usually has the exact opposite result of what I set out to do. And we don't need to use those words. So I think one of the first ways is quite simply through word choice, and just realizing that sometimes just plain speak does the job, because it doesn't, I don't feel compelled to posture. We have the data, we've experienced the data, here are the results. Our clothes are getting to the most remote parts of the world. And it can be stated that simply. Now, if somebody wants the exact details, I can supply those. But I think it's finding a middle ground between sort of opinion and peer-reviewed science, and to talk about it in that middle ground while drawing from the others. And something I do in the book is completely share some personal experiences with various challenges, and to say, well, here's where I am, or to share in general, I still wear synthetic ski gear. I'm trying wools and things, but honestly, my ski gear is really good, probably because of the performance that the synthetics give me. But I can mitigate its effect by finding 100% polyester, because that lack of a mix of materials means it has a better back end of life. So, and that's another just example of kind of answering that question that you just asked about communicating, is I'm also a very big believer in communicating. If I'm going to talk about a problem, to also talk about potential solutions, and acknowledge when the solutions are unsatisfying, but that's all we've got right now. And that, over 15 years, it's pretty incredible how much has changed. And I can be very specific talking about that. in two ways. One is 15 years ago, we could show up kind of anywhere with Rosalia Project and find beaches that potentially had really not been cleaned up and certainly not had a data cleanup. And it was easy to find littered beach, which is awful. It's not good. But now we go into places, and it's not just in the US, it's around the world. And if we want to do a beach cleanup, we often can't find a beach that isn't being addressed by a local organization doing it. And that's the best news. That is amazing. That is an evolution that, in my opinion, was exactly the best way this could have gone, is that local organizations have sprung up to protect their region, at least on this particular problem of marine debris. So change. Yeah, isn't that good news?
Wow. Well, and then
Yeah.
it's also see that, for how gloom and doom that sometimes is there's a lot of also positive news that are going around in the movement.
It's true. And if you think about it, I mean, yes, you can still go to places that at first glance look pristine. And when you start looking, like you get down on your hands and knees, you find all sorts of microplastic and that kind of thing. And that happens. And hopefully someday that will happen even less. But the big picture is the only beaches that really get a lot of attention for being dirty are the ones that are so covered you're wading through trash. So like huge amounts. And even those are getting addressed. And I'm not saying we're there yet, but we certainly are moving in the right direction. And the other place where I think it's been easier to the science that has been happening, the academic and institutional science that's been happening that is strengthening my ability to communicate about this is the relationship to human health and the consequences of microplastic in particular, because it's not like we can inhale a Doritos bag, you can't. So you have to wait till it's really small to get inside. Because I think about my presentation and the part where I talk about things and, first it's just there is trash out there. And then, okay, this trash, it turns out, is turning into microplastic. It's breaking down and it's getting really, really small. And then we're like, oh, God, that small stuff seems to be in animals. And then it's proven. It's in now 1,300 species it's been found in, of animals from plankton to the blue whales. So now we say, okay, it's in animals. Then we learned, this is the collective we, that it's in humans. And so different parts. And as time goes by, we find it in different parts of humans. But that's kind of all we knew. All I could say was, it's in, people have found it in someone's stomach, or it's in beer, or it's in tap water. And we didn't know more. And just in the last 2 years, now we've gotten to the point where this very hardcore academic and institutional science, robust, incredibly trustable, I should say, or reliable type of science, has allowed us to be able to communicate that, well, it's not just in us, it's in all these places. And there are now correlations, so relationships or potential relationships between symptoms and the presence of microplastics. So this is like this last step. We don't have any causation yet. So no one can say that like X bit of plastic caused this cancer or this inflammation in someone. But studies have shown relationships, like in people who, there was just a brain tissue study done and of cadavers. So people who were dead, who donated their organs to science, a group of researchers went and looked, but they had those persons' medical history. So what they found was a relationship that the people with microplastics in their brain tissue were more likely to also have dementia. There was another study that got arterial plaque from people that had blockages in their circulation system. And so they took the plaque, dissected it, and again, correlation, they found that the people that had microplastic in their arterial plaque had a 3.5 times higher likelihood to experience stroke, heart attack, or dying within 3 years of their surgery. It doesn't mean that the plastics did that, but there's this correlation. And so, when it comes to messaging and talking about this and solutions, and that is as we've gone over the last 15 years, there's certainly been more specific information that can help inspire action. And that, for me, is really awesome as far as blending everybody at all parts of the kind of scientific chain.
It's really fascinating to hear that, and you really understand the issue, and also, as you were saying, correlation is not causation, but chances are that something harmful chemical and horrible things coming from oil, uh, of course, and not being natural. I don't want the natural bias, but of course, they should not belong inside our organs. I don't think evolution has made us to get our brains full of microplastic, and and we really need to get away from it, and as soon as possible, because we are really not only destroying our species, but we are destroying our wonderful planet. And it's really exciting to hear all the work you're doing and the wonderful things that you are. I want to ask, as one of the last one closing, going towards the end of the episode, just asking, what are the next steps for Rachel? Where do you want to take the Rosalia Project, the work you're doing with Cora and other? Which is the vision for the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay. So for the next 5 to 10 years, I'm just going to kind of shoot these out. So I would love to see washing machines have filters all fitted in as many places as possible, and to say that we have played at least a small part in that, as being so early in, and the influence that the Cora Ball has had. So I don't know that I am exactly in charge of that, but it's something I hope to see. Something I'm more in charge of, I'm really excited about decision making in the age of plastics as a series. And so it's exciting to now be talking about it in real life, and for the launch at the end of the summer, beginning of the fall. I hope that inspires people. And I hope that leads to a series of books where we address, say, like decision making in the age of plastics dedicated to kitchens, or dedicated to clothing, or to kids, like that kind of thing. So I would love to see that gain some momentum and really help people in the big picture. So like the big picture effect, I hope, is better, more confident decision making, which I think overall will result in less overconsumption and a turn towards a reuse, repair, borrowing type of economy, and also products that are better made because people are buying with more intent. So that's something I'd like to see. With Rosalia Project, I would love for American Promise, our research vessel, to continue to be sailing and inspiring people who are serving on as volunteers. So anyone listening, if you are excited to be part of this program, we love people from all over the world. And every year, we always have people from outside the US who join us, and also from a huge variety of professional and academic and age backgrounds. So minimum age is 18. Our oldest so far is, I think, 72 or 73. We always have a mix for us, that we're looking at different types of diversity of thought and experience and perspective to bring on board as the crew. And then we work on remote islands and with people and doing science. You'll see rosaliaproject.org. You can see what's going on, but we put out a call for crew every year, sort of just around February or so. So I would love to see Rosalia Project keep going. And I hope that people realize that little actions that they can take can really start to have a difference. I think meeting people and talking to them and hearing that the message is getting through would be pretty inspiring to me. And the message being that this isn't something that only consumers have to work on, but there's a big opportunity for all of us, but that people in local governments, people in national governments, people who are decision makers in corporate environments, in academic environments, innovators, and kind of everyone has a role to play here, and that we can actually move this in the right direction. And I have one more thing.
Yes.
You're thinking, oh, like it would be fun to be part of some of the research. We're developing a global citizen science microplastic and microfiber mapping and monitoring program. It's called CSI for the Ocean. So if you think of like CSI, crime scene investigation, yeah, and the science of forensics. So in 2018, I partnered with Professor Claire Gwinnett at Staffordshire University in the UK. She is super cool, an award-winning forensic scientist. She called me up. So I'm doing expedition science on the problem of microfiber. She does forensic science, and I'm sure you've heard, like fibers and little things that get transferred around in crime scenes are often very, very pivotal to cases to understand, like if this fiber can only have come from that carpet and, that kind of a thing, like kind of life or death. The methods that the forensic scientists have developed to understand where fibers are from and how to look at them, Claire realized was transferable to the marine science that we were doing and the conservation. And so she and I were together on the Hudson River expedition, the first Hudson River expedition. And this summer, we are so excited. We're beta testing an app that will underpin this program. We've been rolling it out slowly. So CSI for the Ocean is something that within the next, ideally 5 years, I hope people are starting to see, and I'll keep in touch with you, but the opportunity will be to take samples in your own waterway or even in the air where you live and to upload results, like you do the work, and upload pictures of any microscopic particles that you find to an app that maps it and really helps us understand this problem in a way that can help us prevent it.
Rachel, I mean, you don't fall short of expectation. This is 3 steps that are really incredible, and you're going, I must say, the moon and beyond. And I really like the CSI for the ocean because it's something that could really help a lot, and especially put on the map some areas and regions which are critical maybe for our biodiversity, for our food. We know that the waters are half of the coast of the Atlantic in Africa, but also here, to a certain extent, the Indian Ocean are feeding the entire planet because the FAO zones where most of the fish you find in your supermarket in Europe, but I suppose also in the US, come from this water. So
yeah. Exactly. We share the waters. We eat from them, and
So
they're all connected.
So it's really incredible, and I really like the work, the passion, and the energy. I'm sure we will connect again to see where you have taken it, and I would like to express my full gratitude for this wonderful episode, full of insights. Really, I mean, it's how I can define it. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's been a pleasure and honor having you on the show.
I appreciate that so much. And your energy and curiosity and interest, I also completely appreciate. Thank you for having me and everyone and for doing this podcast. I hope you enjoy the coming summer in your beautiful country.
Fantastic.
And get swimming in a clean ocean.
Yeah, because we need the clean ocean. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rachel. Are you satisfied after this wonderful episode? Let's continue together our sustainability journey.